I bring you greetings from the Florence International Church in Florence, Italy. My name is Pastor Randy McGehee, and it is my privilege and joy today to be able to share with you a few thoughts that hopefully will encourage you in your walk for Jesus in the week before you. From 1 Timothy chapter 1, verses 18 through 20, we read the following passage of Scripture. Timothy, my son, I am giving you this command in keeping with the prophecies once made about you, so that by recalling them you may fight the battle well, holding on to faith and a good conscience, which some have rejected and so have suffered shipwreck with regard to the faith. Among them are Hymenaeus and Alexander, whom I have handed over to Satan to be taught not to blaspheme. On April the 10th, 1912, the RMS Titanic left her berth at the harbor in Southampton, England. This was the maiden voyage for the 882-foot-long ocean liner that had been billed as unsinkable. She carried with her 2,228 passengers and crew. Most of the passengers had paid thousands of dollars to sail on that great luxury liner's first voyage. 4 days into the voyage, on April the 14th, 1912, severe ice warnings were received for the area through which the Titanic was sailing. These warnings were ignored, and the Titanic maintained her course for New York Harbor. And at 11:40 p.m., the Titanic struck an iceberg on the starboard side of her bow. She began to take on water at an alarming rate, and within 3 hours the Titanic and 1,523 of her passengers were at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. Only 705 of the original 2,228 persons survived that great shipwreck. Since 1912, people have tried to figure out what happened to that vessel to bring it to its demise. This ship that was called unsinkable. Most people would agree that the tragedy was a mixture of many things, including negligence, apathy, greed, pride, and incompetence. In other words, the tragedy could have been avoided had all the proper steps been taken by the captain and the crew of the Titanic. But since those steps were not taken, a tragic loss of life occurred on that cold night in the North Atlantic Ocean. Of course, the Titanic is just one of many, many famous shipwrecks. We could also talk about the Andrea Doria, the Lusitania, or the Edmund Fitzgerald. All were tragedies that should never have happened. The fact that we find, along with others as well, behind the great shipwrecks of history makes for a fascinating study. But did you know that not all shipwrecks happen at sea? It's true. Most shipwrecks occur on dry ground. Our text today speaks of the potential of a spiritual shipwreck. In fact, it even records the names of two men in the early church that has experienced such a shipwreck. Most of us will never be involved in a shipwreck at sea. However, the possibility exists that we might suffer a shipwreck in our spiritual lives. In some ways, a spiritual shipwreck is far more devastating than a shipwreck on the high seas. Our text reveals something of the nature of spiritual shipwrecks and how we are to go about avoiding them. I want to help you avoid the danger of shipwreck in your spiritual life. With the Lord's help, I want you to think on this thought today: avoiding spiritual shipwreck. Your life does not have to end up badly from a spiritual perspective. You do not have to be shipwrecked in your walk with God. The facts revealed in this passage will help us to avoid the shipwrecks of the spiritual life. Take time today to focus on what this passage says to you. Then ask the Lord to show you those areas of your life that are endangering your walk with Him. And then allow Him to help you make the needed course corrections that will save you and take you all the way into eternity with Him.